It's that time of the day again. Time to hop back over to the world of creepypasta and ruin one of your favourite games with a creepy tale. This time we're going to be looking at Metroid with a story called Secret World. Let's jump right in. Uploaded to the Creepypasta website, this story is about the time our author was preparing to move house when he came across something from his past. As he was hunting through his belongings, he found an old shoebox full of CDs. Curiously flipping through them, he realized that they were backups of files from over 10 years ago. He stopped packing and instead began to check out the CDs on his computer. They were mostly stuff like MP3 files and animated GIFs. However, he then stumbled across one labeled Conversation with Pan. The disc contained a bunch of images, a few audio files, and some text dumps from a message board, forcing the player to recall an incident that had occurred many years back, an incident he thought he had forgotten. The incident took place in 2004 in the author's last year of high school, during which time he spent most of his free time being an admin for an emulation message board. He was one of 3 guys who were admins, and the board was pretty niche, so it didn't get much traffic. Being an admin allowed him to change users' avatars or edit their posts, usually to stuff like "I suck" or "I cry into my pillow at night," the hardcore stuff. However, one night a guy registered to the forum and created a thread called "Need help to pull apart my NES." Now our author was a little perplexed by the question, but he had time to kill, so he thought he would respond, helping the user Pan and explaining to him what ROMs were. He got the gist that Pan wasn't technically savvy, fair enough. After explaining what ROMs and emulators were, he didn't hear back from Pan for a few days. However, he then returned to the message board and became quite a bit of a regular. Most people didn't really have time for him, they found him to be annoying and asked dumb questions. One night Pan started a thread about how he couldn't get an emulator to read games he had downloaded, resulting in our author having to explain to him what a zip file was and how it worked. Now the other admins were growing tired of the user and wanted to ban him. However, our author didn't want him to get upset, so he said he would talk to Pan. He told him to check through the boards before posting questions that might have already been answered. He then told him if he ever really got stuck, he could just private message him and he would try to help. Now of course, it wasn't long before Pan started private messaging him with questions. Lots of questions. Soon enough he was asking for game recommendations, and from there they began to have a correspondence for the next few months, discovering that Pan was 16 and lived in London. One particular night the two were having a conversation about Metroid games, with Pan asking if he had ever heard of Secret Worlds in Metroid 2. It was a pretty well known glitch. Basically, if you were falling down a long shaft in some place in the game and you press the select button repeatedly, really fast, you can make wall tiles disappear. If you go through the tunnel that is created, you'll end up outside the map. From there you can find rooms that are tile swaps of regular rooms. Aside from using it to sequence break, it's a pretty pointless glitch. However, a few people started up a website devoted to the Secret Worlds, completely obsessed with mapping the whole thing out. Our author then received another message from Pan describing how he had become obsessed with the Secret Worlds. It was trippy but hard to describe. He then took snapshots and sent them over. One private message read, "God, you are not gonna believe it. The game just scared the crap out of me. I was messing around in the secret world and all of a sudden I went into a room. The music changed and started playing like I had to fight a Metroid. The next thing I know, this garbled mess is flying at me." Our author didn't hear from Pan for a while after that, until one night he was on the message boards and received the following. "Something weird is going on. I found a new area tonight. It's a room which is made up of bits and pieces of save points. I found a room like this before, but this one's different. None of the saves work, which is weird because they usually do in the secret world. And actually, when you stand on saves in the secret world, there are weird symbols where it should say press start to save." Pan then sent over a handful of pictures to show our author what he meant, and he knew straight away that this wasn't a glitch. He asked Pan where he had got the ROM from and he gave him the address. He checked it out, but the page no longer existed. Just before our author was about to go to bed, he decided to take a look at the pictures again, and it occurred to him that the words might actually form a sentence. He grabbed a piece of paper and started trying out combinations, eventually coming up with "How dare you? Stop stealing my legacy." A few days later he received another message from Pan. It read, "Check this out. I turned on Metroid 2 tonight, and after pressing start to load up my game, something happened. Usually it goes straight to where you last saved, but this time it just stayed on the title screen. The sound became really distorted and I thought that it had frozen. I was just about to reset the game when the screen changed and this message popped up. Last chance to stop. Is there any way to record sound off an emulator?" Our author taught Pan how to capture the audio and gave him his email address, telling him to attach the file there if he managed to record anything. He also began to browse through ROM hack sites trying to find the one Pan was playing, but he didn't have any luck. The following night he was browsing the message board when he noticed he had a new private message. It was from Pan, and it read, "Something freaky tonight in Secret World. I found myself in a room that looks like one of the rooms with the statues and an item, except all the blocks are wrong. I walked into the room and the music played that you hear right when you run into a Metroid, except there wasn't a Metroid in the room. I left the room back the way I came and I was in a different spot to how it was before. It was a passageway that just scrolls on endlessly, but the music is wrong. It doesn't sound like anything in the game. I managed to capture the sound. I'm about to email you the file." He then sent another message. "Hang on a sec, someone's knocking at my door. I'll be back in a moment." During this time our author downloaded the audio file and listened to it. At first it sounded like a foghorn, but then another sound began to play over top of it. The other sound was familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. He was getting freaked out, so he quickly closed the file. He hadn't heard from Pan in a while and was beginning to grow worried. It was a few days later now and still no word, so he decided to play around with audio, trying to make out what it was. He sped it up a few times and realized that the foghorn sound might be the music that plays before you fight the Metroid Queen. As he continued listening, he realized that the other sound was actually someone talking. The first part was an introduction, someone saying, "I am," but our author couldn't catch their name. However, the second part was clear. It was, "Knock knock, I am here." He was freaked out, so he hunted through message boards and sent out some emails in hopes of finding someone who had also discovered this weird sound. Then one night he got a private message that read, "Look up Gumpy Yokoi." So he did. Turns out they were a hugely influential person at Nintendo and had worked on Metroid 2. Not long after they left Nintendo, he had started his own company before dying in a car accident on October 4th, 1997, the same day our author had last heard from Pan. He then jumped back over to the audio to listen more, and he could now make out Gumpy's name at the beginning. Following this, our author went through a period where he would never open the door. He then began scouring websites in hopes of finding a news article about a missing teenager in London. Finally coming across one that caught his attention. It was about a missing teenager who had last been seen at home. His mother had left for work and she said that he had been on the computer in the lounge room. When she returned later, the lounge was empty, but the computer and various other appliances were still turned on, with his wallet and phone also left behind. Could this be Pan? Our author never found out, and instead decided to write out his story in hopes of finding another person who had encountered Secret World or had discovered something creepy in the game. Well, there we have it. Did this creepypasta spook you? Are there any others you want us to discuss on the channel? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another gaming vid. And until next time, see you later.